What flaw do you accept about your significant other that would be a deal breaker for many? When she gets stressed, she screams. It is horrible. I learned how her mother treated her and understand it a lot more. She already been to therapy once. She realized how much it troubles me. That says a lot about her character. She saw a problem and is working on it. Now when she gets stressed and raises her voice, she knows I will just leave the house. I mean, no disrespect, just leaving until she calms down. At first, I read when she gets stressed and I was very confused. His intense secrecy. He doesn't even keep things secret on purpose. He just doesn't mention things as a default, and the result is very, very weird. His whole family is like this. Freakishly unwilling to talk about themselves. He is so secretive that I found out after 7 years together that he has 2 brothers. Not one. Nothing scandalous or anything at all. They talk on the phone once every few months. And when I emailed his brother, he wrote back right away to say hi. Seems like a nice normal dude. But I guess since he lives in New Zealand, he doesn't come to family gatherings, so I haven't met. Hi monsieur, this is par for the course. I found out about a grad degree when we ran into one of his profs at a burrito place. When I asked why he never mentioned his brother, he just said that he would have if I asked. I don't know that. How many brothers do you have is a question you should have to ask. But apparently, to be honest, same. Found out he was a qualified scuba instructor 3 years after being married. Finding new things out all the time. To be fair though, we only found out last year he has autism, so it made more sense that he will only answer direct questions. Never thought to ask that one though. He's not deliberately secretive, just doesn't occur to him to share spontaneously. He's the most loyal person I've ever met, so I never worry. If you don't mind me asking, how did you find out he has autism? We had our son. He just stopped coping. Couldn't process anything well. Having a kid is stressful anyway, but it meant he couldn't mask how overwhelmed life got for him. Sometimes, having a kid just brought that out. Our boy was very sick for the first few months of his life too. I googled all the things I was seeing in him. Lent towards Asperger's type behaviors. So we set up a meeting with a clinical psychologist for testing. And within the hour he had his diagnosis. He had coped so well in life up to that point to be able to hide how overwhelming life was for him, that not one person had thought anything was up. He's been able to admit how hard he finds life now, and I can help him by taking the weight off Abbott. It's a good thing. Hope that helps. They don't fully close the tops on jars. How do you tolerate this madness? With my man, he needs time to think about serious subjects or even minor decisions sometimes. So you can't expect him to give an answer right away. It can be really frustrating, especially when you kind of need an answer right away. I've come to think of it as him being very invested in even the little things in our lives because he cares so much. Because this is how his brain works. I try to give him lead time, or if a decision needs to be made right away, I offer to be the one to make the call, which takes it off his plate altogether. He accommodates my anxieties and quirks, so it's definitely not a one-way street. My husband also has analysis paralysis. Takes him a long time to decide on anything. I really like your take on it. Previously I accepted it as part of who he is. Now that I've read you viewing it as being invested, I'll be able to approach things differently. Thanks Reddit stranger. He wore a fedora in one of his senior high school photos. More like a deal maker. WTF. Both of us prefer to spend all of our time together. It's not a codependent, dysfunctional thing because neither of us gets upset or stressed out if we can't. But we're happiest in each other's company, and given a choice, we'd always choose to be together. The whole pandemic situation hasn't been a problem for us because it's actually allowed us to be together more, as is our preference. However, I understand this doesn't work for most people, but it's always worked for us. He talks a lot. He rambles about everything possible. From the origin of salty licorice to why there are so many irregular verbs in French to his old work experiences to the most minute historical or mythological facts. Sometimes he'll laugh when I'm working. I'll go, quote, and he'll talk for 5 minutes straight about some obscure fact he just learned. I love his enthusiasm, monsieur. I genuinely like his little rants as signs of his boundless intellectual curiosity. I always learn something, and we'll never run out of things to talk about. And besides, I talk a lot too, so we're well matched. That's actually so sweet. He sounds like an amazing person to talk to. He really is. I love him a whole bunch. I've never felt so comfortable with someone before. He makes me incredibly happy. She doesn't cook. Doesn't bother me since I love cooking and worked in catering for many years. But might be a deal breaker for some. My boyfriend doesn't cook, and 4 days ago was the first time I ever saw him ingest produce in a year and a half. Poor nutrition is a person's prerogative, but I wish I could cook more things for both of us. I don't know if mental illness is a flaw, per se, but I assume that intense chronic depression would generally be a deal breaker for most. He's truly a lovely person, and when he's happy, it's like the sun comes out. One of my goals is to eventually get him to understand what I see in Hi Monsieur. We both know that I'm not his therapist. DW, that's not what's going on. Everything's been shitty these past few months for a variety of reasons, but I keep holding out hope that it'll get better. Even in the time I've known him, he's made some pretty significant improvements. She's not very good at sex. I love her, and marriage isn't all about sex. She had an eating disorder, bulimia, most of her life, and just kinda freezes up when we're intimate. We have 3 gorgeous and healthy kids after losing 4 and wondering if we would ever have any. We have a good life, just not good sex. That's a tough one, mate. Sex is about the most vulnerable a person is, and somebody with body issues as significant as hers are a bad combo. Best you can do is reinforce how sexually attractive she is, over and over and over and over. Drill it into her head how hot she is. Sex is 80% confidence, so if you just attack her confidence with love, then it'll help. As someone who used to freeze and has opened up sexually since I first met my spouse, it wasn't about being told how hot I was. That sort of thing was completely well-intentioned, but my head hurted as I really want to stick my dick in you, which didn't help the portion of the problem that had more to do with me than Hi Monsieur. What helped more was hearing that no matter what I looked like in a given moment, he was still interested in us being together and close and touching one another. And not just sexually, but cuddling and kissing and hugging and all the other schmaltzy stuff. It turns out what I was stressing about had less to do with my appearance and more to do with my internal confidence and comfort with myself as a person worthy of being loved. Honestly, I think my boyfriend is pretty accepting about my god-awful snoring. I've never thought to record it, but the impressions he does are not flattering. Have you gotten yourself checked for sleep apnea? If not, please do. My CPAP machine changed my life. I feel so much better. Borderline personality disorder. It's sometimes very problematic, but we've gotten better. And if she's willing to tolerate my bullshit, it's really the least I can do. I partially posted the question because my GF and I came to the conclusion yesterday that I probably have bipolar disorder. I have anxiety problems diagnosed already, but that's more sympathetic than being a bipolar bitch. It really hurts to see and hear people online saying to just dump someone because they're toxic or something, when the person likely has a mental illness. I don't think it's anyone's obligation to stay with a mentally ill person or find help for them. But the amount of time people say break up with them, rather than suggest that they go to a therapist, is disheartening. It just shows how stigmatized the mental illness is. I think people should get the choice of whether or not they are prepared to deal with their significant other having a mental illness, and they can leave if they can't handle it. But I think the blanket assumption that a mentally ill person who is still working out their mental health just can't be in a relationship is incorrect and hurtful. It takes a lot of self-awareness, patience and understanding to be in a relationship with someone who is working on their mental health. I wholeheartedly agree that if someone can't handle it, they can leave just for that. But I also believe that if you genuinely love someone, you'd be willing to be more self-aware, more patient and more understanding, and it wouldn't feel hard. In other words, if someone thinks that their partner's mental health is more of a burden or makes things too hard on them, or their behavior is toxic before suggesting help, they should not waste their partner's time. Thank you so much for watching and have a good day.